My family left me at 18 with a cruel note and vanished. But after I became successful, a hidden bank account and a tape recorder exposed everything they'd done behind my back. When I was 18, I came home from school and found the house empty. No warning. No goodbye. Just a note on the kitchen counter. You'll figure it out. That was it. No signature. No forwarding address. My parents, Tom and Susan, and my younger sister Erin had vanished. I checked the closets. Empty. The fridge, cleared out. My bed, desk, everything still in my room, but the rest of the house was hollow. That was the day my childhood ended. Up until then, I thought I was part of a family. We weren't perfect, but who is? I worked a part-time job at a sandwich shop, I got decent grades, and I stayed out of trouble. I wasn't the golden child, Erin was, but I tried. I made my mom a cake for her birthday once at 13. She said it was clumpy. When Erin needed help cramming for finals, I stayed up all night with her. She told me I was annoying. At 16, I gave my dad my whole paycheck when he said we were behind on rent. A month later, he snapped and called me dead weight. It didn't matter what I did. I was always too much or not enough. A week after the note, the landlord stopped by. He told me the lease had been broken early, and I had 7 days to get out. That's how I found out they'd moved to Kentucky. Just gone. With nowhere to go, I couch surfed for 3 nights. Friends from school whose parents didn't ask too many questions. But I knew that couldn't last. I used the last $120 I had to rent a dusty storage unit. It was the only place I could afford. I kept my backpack under a pile of old clothes, slept on a yoga mat, and stored my few possessions in plastic bins. It had no windows, no power, but it was mine. I showered at the YMCA, ate peanut butter with a spoon, used the library computers to apply for jobs. Eventually, I got a night shift at a 24-hour diner. Gloria, the manager, paid me under the table until I got a new ID and birth certificate. She even let me nap in the supply closet when I nearly passed out from exhaustion. She was the first adult who ever showed me real kindness. By 19, a customer at the diner offered me a temp gig doing digital filing at her office. It paid $14 an hour. It felt like I'd won the lottery. I saved every cent, read library books on budgeting, learned how to build credit. I stopped counting on anyone but myself. At 23, I started freelancing online. At 26, I launched a small consulting business out of a secondhand laptop. At 28, I hired my first employee. By 30, I had a paid-off condo in Chicago, $1 million in savings, and an actual vacation plan for the first time in my life. I checked my bank app the morning I hit 7 digits and cried. Not because of the money, but because I'd made it. I'd survived. No one from my family reached out all those years. Erin got married. I found out only because her name popped up on Facebook under People You May Know. Her last name had changed. I clicked her profile, stared at her wedding photo for 10 minutes. She looked happy. I wondered what she told her husband about me. That I was troubled? That I ran away? Sometimes I wish I could hate them. But I don't. I never did. Hating them would be easier. What I felt was deeper. It was grief. Every Thursday, I go to therapy. My therapist, Julia, tells me I've done something remarkable. I built a life from nothing. I created stability in a world that gave me none. And I believed in myself when no one else did. Last week, I went on a podcast to talk about family estrangement. It blew up. Over 1 million views in 4 days. People shared it everywhere. Reddit, Instagram, TikTok. And that's when the first email arrived. Subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from Susan. No apology. No mention of the note. Just a message saying she'd heard my perspective and wanted to reconnect. 2 days later, Erin emailed me. "We miss you. Can we talk?" I shut my laptop. Because I already knew. They didn't miss me. They missed what I'd become. What happened next changed everything. I didn't respond to the emails. Not right away. But I didn't delete them either. That's what scared me most. I kept opening them, reading the same careful phrases over and over. "It's been too long. We just want to reconnect. You're still our daughter." Not one apology. Not one acknowledgement of what they'd done. It was all smoke. The kind of thing people say when they're not sorry, just nostalgic. Still, I couldn't stop wondering, why now? Why reach out after 12 years of silence? Why now, when I finally had something to lose? Then I remembered. I'd gone viral. The podcast interview, the trending TikToks, the LinkedIn feature about women in business. My name, Isabel Hampton, was suddenly everywhere. And with it, my success. A self-made millionaire. The daughter they left behind. That wasn't a coincidence. A week after the first email came another one, this time from Aaron. Can we meet? Just you and me. No expectations. Coffee. I shouldn't have responded. I knew that. But a part of me, a part one thought I'd buried years ago, wanted to see her face. To look her in the eye and ask why. I chose a public cafe in Midtown. Mid-afternoon. Bright daylight. 1 hour, no more. She arrived 15 minutes late. I almost didn't recognize her. Erin had always been the delicate one, but now she looked like someone who curated her entire life for Instagram. Designer sunglasses, flawless makeup, and a neutral-toned outfit that screamed expensive subtlety. She sat down across from me with the practiced ease of someone used to attention. "Wow," she said, taking off her sunglasses. "You look amazing." I didn't respond. "You've really done it," she continued, too brightly. "The whole internet loves you." I said nothing, just waited. She finally dropped the smile. "Look," she said, "I know things weren't perfect back then. I know Mom and Dad made mistakes, but we've all grown. We're different now. Maybe it's time to talk, to move forward." To move forward from what? I asked. From the part where they abandoned me without a word? Or the part where you never called? Never emailed? Not once. Her face faltered. "They were struggling," she said softly. "With money mostly. Mom had her breakdown. Dad lost his job, and I was only 16. So you just left me." "I didn't know," she whispered. "Not until we were already in Kentucky. I thought you were coming later. That it was part of the plan." I scoffed. "There was no plan, Aaron. There was a note on the counter and an empty house." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." It was the first real thing she said. I stared at her, trying to see past the years. Trying to find the sister I once stayed up all night tutoring. The girl who cried when I made her a birthday scavenger hunt. But all I saw was someone who'd practiced this conversation in the mirror. "Why are you really here?" I asked. Erin glanced around, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet of notebook paper. She slid it across the table. I knew what it was before I touched it. The note. "You'll figure it out." My breath caught. It was the same one. Same handwriting. Same faint grease stain on the corner. "How do you still have this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated. "Because I didn't write it, and neither did Mom." I froze. "Dad did," she said, "and he didn't leave when we did." My heart thudded. "What do you mean?" She swallowed. "He stayed behind for a few weeks. Said he had to make sure things were quiet. I didn't understand at the time, but I think he stayed to watch you, to make sure you didn't talk to anyone." A chill spread through my chest. I thought about the weeks after they left. How I always felt like someone was watching me. The car I saw parked outside the storage unit twice. The time I thought I heard someone knock, but found no one there. "I think he was afraid," Erin said. "Afraid you'd go to the police. Or tell someone what happened at home." My mind reeled. The silence. The loneliness. The paranoia. It hadn't been in my head. And now? I asked. "Why tell me this now?" She bit her lip. "Because he's sick. They both are. Dad's got something in his liver, and Mom, well, she forgets things. Sometimes whole days. And you're everywhere now. They're scared, Izzy." There it was. "They want money," I said flatly. "They want forgiveness," she replied. I stood. "They don't get either." She looked desperate. "Izzy, please. I just thought you should know." But I already knew. Because when I walked out of that cafe, I didn't go home. I went straight to a lawyer. Vanessa Ortiz's office was quiet in the unnerving way only expensive places can be. Soft lighting, thick carpeting, the distant hum of city life muted by double-glazed glass. Everything about it whispered discretion and power. I placed the note on her desk. Just a crumpled piece of lined notebook paper. But when she read the words, "You'll figure it out," her lips pressed into a thin line. "This is what they left you?" she asked. "The only thing," I replied. Vanessa was everything I needed her to be. Precise, direct, and completely unbothered by sentiment. She'd handled high-profile family estrangement cases, one involving a billionaire tech heir whose parents tried to sue him for cutting them off. She didn't flinch when I told her what I wanted. "I'm not trying to ruin them," I said. "I just want to make sure they never touch a cent of mine. Ever." "Restraining order," she said immediately. "Asset protection clause. Possibly a cease and desist, depending on how public their approach becomes." And just like that, my story became a file. Vanessa flipped open a notepad. "Start from the beginning." So I did. I told her about the day they left me, the storage unit, the diner, the climb. I told her about Erin's email, the cafe meeting, the note, how she still had it. And then I told her the part that kept me up at night. Erin said my father stayed behind. I said, after they moved. For weeks. Watching me. Making sure I didn't talk to anyone. Vanessa's pen stopped. Her eyes lifted. Did you ever see him? During that time? Not clearly, I admitted. But I thought I was being watched. I saw a car parked across from the unit twice. Thought it was paranoia. Maybe it wasn't, she said. If he stayed, and if you were a legal minor when they abandoned you, there are real implications here. Especially if there was intent to intimidate. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. Erin's words had unlocked something I hadn't thought about in years. A memory. I was 11. Everyone else was asleep, or I thought they were. I came downstairs to get water and found my dad in the living room, smoking. My mom sat across from him, red-faced and whispering urgently. Erin's name came up, then mine. That's when he said it. We're not raising a problem. Not two of them. I didn't understand what he meant back then. I thought maybe he was talking about school, or me being too sensitive. But now, hearing it again in my mind, I understood. I wasn't just unloved. I was seen as dangerous. I asked too many questions. Noticed too much. I was the kid who didn't look away when the bills piled up or when mom cried alone in the car. I remembered things I wasn't supposed to. Like the time she gave Erin a new iPad the day after saying we couldn't afford groceries. Or when dad lost his job but still paid cash for golf weekends. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a liability. When I told Vanessa that story, she didn't say anything. Just nodded, slowly. These things leave marks, she said finally. But they also leave patterns. She reached into her desk drawer, pulled out a folder. I started running background checks the second you walked in, she said. I pulled property records, public filings. But I also found something else. She tapped the folder. There was a sealed report. When you were 13. My skin went cold. What kind of report? It's redacted, she said. But the incident involved child services. An anonymous call made to CPS. The file was closed without follow-up. I felt dizzy. I never knew about that, I said. I think you did, she replied gently. You just forgot. Or blocked it out. Suddenly, I remembered something. Something small, but sharp as glass. A day after school, I'd come home to find my mom scrubbing the baseboards with bleach. She never cleaned like that. She was furious, yelling about someone sticking their nose where it didn't belong. My dad told her to calm down or they'd come back. I thought he meant bill collectors. Now I wasn't so sure. Vanessa leaned forward. Whatever happened then? It matters now. Especially if your father stayed behind years later to intimidate you. This wasn't just neglect. It could be coercion, suppression. I swallowed hard. They never hit me, I said. That doesn't mean they didn't hurt you, she replied. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept circling the same question. What else don't I remember? At 2:14 a.m., I got a notification. Erin had posted a photo on Instagram. A childhood drawing I made when I was 5. Stick figures labeled Mom, Dad, Erin, me. The caption read, "Blood is forever. We forgive, even when it hurts." But something was wrong. My name had been cropped off the bottom. It was a rewrite, a narrative they were already reshaping. So I posted my own photo. The note, "You'll figure it out." Caption, I did. Within 2 hours, it had over 80,000 likes. But the real shock came the next day. Vanessa called. I dug deeper, she said. And I found something. Something off. What is it? I asked, heart racing. There's an account, she said. In your name. Opened 15 years ago. You never touched it. But someone's been depositing money. I went still. Who? I asked. Her voice was calm, but the answer hit like a punch to the chest. Your father. When Vanessa said it, your father has been depositing money into an account in your name. My first reaction was disbelief. Are you sure? I asked, already feeling my stomach drop. She was. She'd found the records. The account had been opened shortly after I turned 16, back when I still lived under their roof. My name, my social security number, a bank branch in Akron. I had never seen it, never touched it. And yet, the deposits were regular, monthly, quiet, steady. $300 here, $450 there. Once, even $900. No withdrawals, just slow accumulation. Over the years, it added up to over $42,000. I stared at the bank statement like it was in a foreign language. What was this for? I asked. Vanessa leaned forward, her tone measured. Some parents do this as a strategy, to create a paper trail. So if their child ever comes forward legally, they can say, look, we were supporting her all along. A legal smokescreen. So they abandoned me, then built a fake lifeline, just in case I ever rose high enough to threaten them. But that wasn't the worst part. There were notes attached to some of the transactions. Most were blank. A dash. A period. But one memo line stopped me cold. Aaron Medical. I blinked. Pulled up the timestamp. 8 years ago. It was around the time I remembered Aaron coming home one afternoon with a split lip and a sprained ankle. She said she'd tripped during track practice. I didn't think much of it then. Our parents brushed it off. But I remembered that night. Dad had taken her into the garage. When they came out, he handed her an envelope. She hugged him so hard I thought something must have been wrong. Now I understood. He hadn't given her money. He'd used my name, my account, my future, to pay for whatever it was. Vanessa called it financial identity abuse. He used your social, she said. Utilities. Internet. Credit pulls. Everything points to Kentucky addresses tied to Aaron between 2011 and 2014. They didn't just leave me behind. They built their new life using my identity. That explained the credit denials in my early 20s. The missed apartment in Chicago because of delinquent accounts I never opened. I thought I was the victim of random identity theft. I wasn't. It was my family. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt the most profound, cold betrayal I've ever known. They had destroyed my credit to pay their bills. They used my name to pay for Aaron's health expenses. And they made sure I would never know, until now. That night, I sat in the quiet of my condo, holding an old photo I found last year in a thrift store bin. Me and Aaron at the zoo. She was holding cotton candy and smiling. I was squinting, shielding my eyes from the sun. But I remembered the moment clearly. I'd been the one holding her hand, keeping her from running into the crowd, keeping her safe. Even then, I'd been the protector. Even then, I'd been the glue. Vanessa prepared a cease and desist. Legal notice was sent to both Tom and Susan Hampton. The documents cited financial fraud, identity misuse, and intent to investigate further. The letter made it clear any direct or indirect contact would be considered harassment. We sent it. 2 days later, Aaron showed up at my building. I don't know how she got in. Maybe a neighbor let her through. But when I opened the door, there she was. No makeup, puffy eyes, holding a photo album. Please, she whispered. Just hear me out. I've heard enough, I said, starting to close the door. She blocked it with her foot. I didn't know it was in your name, she said. I swear. Dad said he was just helping. That it didn't matter because you'd never need credit anyway. I stared at her. So you did know. I was 17, she said, breaking. I didn't understand. I needed help. I didn't say anything. She held out the photo album. I didn't take it. But before she left, she said something that stopped me cold. Dad's not afraid of you, is he? He's afraid of what you'll remember. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed through my mind, pulling something loose. A sound. A shape. The pantry, when I was 14. I remembered stacking cereal boxes one afternoon and spotting something hidden behind them. A small cassette recorder, covered in dust. Batteries corroded. I remember pressing play out of curiosity. It was static. Then voices. I hadn't thought about it in years. But now the memory returned, vivid and sharp. That tape had a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. And I still had it. Somewhere, packed away with old notebooks and journals in a storage bin in my closet. I got up, turned on the light, and started digging. I found the recorder at the bottom of an old shoebox, wedged between a cracked snow globe and my childhood swim ribbons. I'd forgotten I'd even kept it. The batteries were long dead, the plastic case brittle with age. But it still worked. I slid in new batteries, pressed play, and sat in silence. Static, then voices. My father's first. Then my mother's, softer, strained. The audio was muffled, but unmistakable. They were arguing in the kitchen. About me. She's getting suspicious. Asking questions again. She's a teenager, Tom. That's what they do. She's not like Aaron. She remembers things. We can't let her mess this up. I listened, frozen. Then my father's voice, clear and deliberate. She's already too smart. One day, she'll figure it out. But by then, we'll be long gone. I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just abandonment. It was premeditated erasure. A plan. They had known what they were doing. They had counted on my silence. I sent the recording to Vanessa. She called 5 minutes later. "This changes everything," she said. The tape gave us grounds to unseal the Child Services report from when I was 13. Within 2 weeks, the court approved the motion. The report was brief but devastating. A guidance counselor had filed a report, citing signs of emotional neglect and potential coercion. I'd come to school withdrawn, anxious, hyper-aware of adult moods. The file had been closed quickly after one home visit. My parents had called it teen moodiness. The system believed them. But now we had proof that wasn't the truth. Vanessa drafted a statement and submitted it to the Department of Child and Family Services, reopening the case under the framework of historic abuse and ongoing financial exploitation. It was the legal equivalent of lighting a fuse. Then we found something else. A second bank account. Not in my name, but funded by the one that was. Money had been moved. Transferred. Some of it to a mortgage account linked to my parents' home in Kentucky. Some to a private school Aaron's kid had attended. I wasn't just their forgotten child. I was their silent sponsor. I had lived in a storage unit, eating spoonfuls of peanut butter for dinner, while they paid private tuition using funds tied to my name. It was theft. Strategically hidden. Intentionally cruel. We filed official fraud reports. Vanessa submitted a cease and desist followed by a formal notice of investigation. The banks froze the accounts. My parents were served. 2 days later, I received a manila envelope by courier. Inside was a typed, 3-page letter from their lawyer. It wasn't an apology. It was a defense. They blamed miscommunication, claimed they'd intended the money as a trust, that reconnecting had been their plan all along, that my story had damaged the family reputation and caused irreversible harm. I didn't respond. Instead, I mailed back a flash drive. On it, the tape recording. No words. No reply. Just the truth. That week, Erin called from a restricted number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked as she spoke. I listened to it. I heard everything. "I'm sorry. I knew things weren't right, but I didn't want to believe it. I was scared. I let them use you because it was easier. You always protected me, and I never returned that. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I see it now." I didn't delete the voicemail, but I didn't call her back. Because forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned. And I wasn't ready. In the months that followed, the investigation deepened. My parents lost their house. Erin disappeared from social media. I legally changed my name. Moved to a quieter place, closer to water. I still run my business, but now I speak publicly too. About financial abuse. Family estrangement. Identity theft committed not by strangers, but by people who share your DNA. The story spread farther than I ever imagined. I've heard from hundreds of people, each carrying their own version of "you'll figure it out." I tell them the same thing. It won't be easy, but yes, you will. Because I did. And in the end, I didn't need their apology. I needed freedom. And I finally had it.